Hey everyone, Morgan here. So today we're going to be talking about some lessons from Hurricane Dorian and some lessons that we can take forward to future natural disasters, specifically for hurricanes, but for other natural disasters as well, because a lot of this stuff will actually apply to just general disasters, emergencies, things like that. Okay, so first of all, I do want to talk about Hurricane Dorian specifically. Hurricane Dorian started out, as a small hurricane, just like most things, and then they expected it to get to a Cat 4, and then it became a Cat 5. And they expected the brunt of it to really be in Florida, but the brunt of it, in fact, pretty much the entire hurricane hit the Bahamas. And the Bahamas got totally devastated. And there were some areas that were unscathed, but for the most part, the Bahamas, it was just devastation. People were describing it as it looks apocalyptic. There's devastation everywhere. And so what we have to think about with this is that the Bahamas is an island. So how are these people supposed to prepare for this scenario when their houses are being destroyed, their communities, all these things are being destroyed by this hurricane? How do they leave, days in advance? A lot of these people just couldn't do that. They couldn't afford it or whatever. So a lot of people were talking about having an inflatable boat. And so here's a couple issues with an inflatable boat. First of all, you do not want to get out on an inflatable boat before the hurricane because that's just asking for trouble. And after the hurricane, the problem is with any of the transportation getting in and out of the island there was a ton of debris all around the island. And it was everywhere, okay? There was just debris everywhere. And so it was making it really difficult for boats to get access in and to leave, okay? So if there were boats there, it was just very difficult for boats to then leave, right? Okay, so boats themselves were having a hard time getting in and out, right? Not just transporting goods, but transporting people. People kept wanting to get on the boat, and the boats were like, no, we can't take you. But then it's the boats trying to get people and services to help people and to get goods to these people, because the grocery stores are being ransacked, gas, all these things are getting, ransacked, or they were just flat out destroyed. And then, so the airport. Okay, so first of all, there was a helicopter that was taking people out, but only the sick and injured, the priority people. Everybody else, they were basically fending for themselves. They still are fending for themselves. Okay, so and the airport was it was incredibly difficult. I believe that they are now able to fly people in and out. People are buying tickets to like Florida and things like that. People that are being shuttled to nearby islands, places where they've never seen this influx of people. People are trying to get out. They are fleeing because they have no life there anymore. Not everybody, but a good majority of people, they have no life. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. There's just no plan there. They have nothing. They have maybe a backpack and a couple totes, and that's it. That's their whole life, So here's a couple things that we can think about when it comes to natural disasters. First of all, you have the before the disaster. You have the calm before the storm, right? Or not even the calm. But that's the thing, it's not calm. People know that the natural disaster is coming, so they're hitting the stores, clearing out the shelves, right? They are hitting the gas stations, clearing out the gas. They're hitting all these major places to clear out all these places. And so now these unprepared people, they're going to the grocery stores that have already been cleared out and going, what the heck? And so now they're fighting for food, literally fighting for food, okay? So you need to have food and water saved and stored up for at least 2 weeks. I highly suggest at least 2 weeks. 72 hours is not enough, and I'm going to tell you why here in just a second. I did explain why in a previous video about surviving natural disasters, especially if you live in natural disaster prone areas. But, food and water is going to be highly important. 72 hours is not enough, at least 2 weeks worth, and if you can, more. and have the food and water in easily transportable ways so that you could, grab a box of food, maybe, a few gallons of water, stuff like that. Yes, it's heavy, and if you have some way to transport it, that's even better. There are buckets with wheels, all these things that can help you, get a little pull behind trailer that you can pull all this stuff. There's lots of resources out there for us, okay? So food and water is going to be absolutely essential, especially because after the natural disaster, okay, the event has happened, the natural disaster has happened, whatever the event was. Traumatic, scary, it was just awful, right? Regardless of how long it lasted. It could last 5 minutes and it'd be traumatic, right? And so now you have the aftermath. The aftermath is going to be the longest, most stressful time, because now you are having to literally rebuild your life. If everything was destroyed, you're now having to rebuild not just your life, but the life of your community, okay? Even if your house wasn't destroyed, maybe, the grocery stores were, maybe, places where there were goods and services in which you could no longer get now, that's leaving you out in the lurch as well. Just because you have your house intact and everything doesn't mean that you're perfectly safe and fine. Speaking of which, though, if your house was fine, you have to think about the safety and security of your family. There will be desperate people who will be, looking for opportunities. They'll be looking for people who have supplies. They'll be looking for those houses that were untouched and who most likely have food and other things, at least, a little canned food, even if it's not prepper food, right? It's a little bit. It's something they don't have, right? So, you're going to have to think about your safety and security. The Bahamas, they were kind of out, on the limb with this. They really didn't have ways to defend themselves. If you have a way to defend yourself, I would highly recommend, keeping a strong hold on that and not letting go of that. There could be no services for quite some time. It just really depends on how great the devastation was. And not just no services, but, no goods. Goods could be coming in very slowly. Relief efforts, they take time. So it is up to you to be independent of those relief efforts. And at the same time, you're going to be in the middle of it. So you're going to need to be able to take care of others as well as yourself. In this time of crisis, the community really should be coming together. Outside of those looters, the more that the more people come together and help each other, the better off they're going to be when it comes to safety and security. And, there is strength in numbers helping people. So outside of the food and the water and the safety, we have to think about shelter. So what clothes do you have? Clothes is part of shelter. Do you have a tent? A tent, if nothing else, is going to be better than nothing else. Okay. So a tarp, some kind of shelter, sleep systems, things to try to at least have some sort of comfort. You may think that this is just, luxury items to have, but not when it comes to losing everything you have. Okay, that sleep system, that tent, that go bag, that little bit of extra food and water that you have, those are going to be your now life. That's going to be your little bubble of possessions that you have to get you by, the defense, things like that. So it's very, very important that you prioritize these things. So I think the biggest question was, these people, they have no idea where to go, what to do. I mean, everything was just demolished. I mean, if you watch any of the videos or hear any of the stories, it's always, what do we do now? Where are we going? And I think that's the biggest lesson that we can take away. Where are you going? What are you doing? What plan of action do you have? When a hurricane or natural disaster is looming down on you, do you have a plan to get out of there before anything ever happens? Because quite honestly, that's part of being prepared. It's seeing the signs and saying, you know what? If I can get out long before this reaches me, that's ideal, right? Especially if it's an island. An island, you're stuck, I mean, you are stuck until The airplanes are back operational, and that's another thing, all this stuff they're now having to rebuild. They're having to clear everything, all this debris, all this stuff. It's going to take a lot of effort, years of rebuilding lives, and people are having to literally uproot themselves to move somewhere else so that they can rebuild their lives either back at the Bahamas or somewhere else. And so you need those plans of, what do I do now? Where am I going to go? How will I survive this for long term? The aftermath is truly, I think, the biggest lesson that we can learn here outside of everything. The aftermath lasts longer than the pre and the actual event in itself. It is going to be extremely stressful. It's going to be financially draining. It's going to be emotionally draining, physically draining. And you do have to also make sure that you will be able to take care of yourself emotionally, physically, mentally, okay? That self-care is still going to be important. While yes, you're going to have to figure out exactly how to just rebuild your life, but you're going to go insane also if you don't take care of yourself, okay? Do whatever you can to try to take care of your mental stability now, long before a disaster, so that you can better control yourself, your mindset, your emotions, and so that you can better be able to help others as well. The emotional toll will be great, and we need to come to terms with that and realize how we're going to deal with that. Thank you all so much for watching. Conquer Tomorrow by Preparing Today. I'll talk to you later. Bye.